This is Flipping Tables. Welcome to Flipping Tables. This is a podcast about technology, gaming, and culture. I'm one of your hosts, Mike Edwards.
And I'm David Lyons.
And we actually have an embarrassment of riches of topics to talk about today. Ooh. You broke something recently.
I did broke something recently. So this is no one's fault but my own. I had my phone in my. I wish I could blame other people, but I had my smartphone in my shirt pocket, and it's an Nexus 4. It was. It still is, but it's no longer functional. So the thing to know about the Nexus 4 is much like the iPhone 4. Mm-hmm. Okay, it has the stupid and totally pointless glass back, which does nothing to improve the phone and actually makes it worse because it sits perfectly flat on a surface, making the rear speaker totally unusable. So it decreases the functionality of the phone. It makes it more fragile, and I smashed it all over the concrete.
And how did this happen? Were you like saving someone's life and your phone was a casualty?
I was. There was a bus out of control about to hit an old-fashioned like English-style pram with an infant in it, and the mother had fallen. Her heel broke. And
you weren't hopping and skipping across the street?
I was definitely not hopping and skipping across the street because that would be ridiculous. And my phone definitely did not fly out of my pocket and shatter only the front piece of glass where the digitizer is, the important bits, leaving the back completely unscathed.
That's the jelly side down situation.
It is. It was totally buttered toast. And the thing is, it didn't just fall because I'm not very tall. So if I'd been holding it in my hand, it would have fallen 3 feet. But it shot up out of my pocket at the apex of diving to save this baby.
Right.
Not the hopping and skipping. And just smashed down and slid 8 feet out in front of me. Oh, God, it was painful to watch. And normally that would be the kind of thing that would just reduce me to fits of inappropriate for podcasting language. But I was just so dumbstruck by my stupidity of trying to save this baby over bothering to take care of my smartphone that the analogy the lie just totally fell apart at that sentence.
Yep, it did.
But yeah, it was destroyed. Good news is I survived the weekend somehow, and a new one is in the mail. So
nice. Yay. So I'm going to share in the show notes a Portlandia skit. I don't know if you've seen it, where Carrie, the female main character, I don't know, they're different characters in every sketch, even though they look the same. I think.
It's the same actor and actress, but they do different characters in each.
Well, anyway, she's leaving Whole Foods or something, and drops her iPhone, and as it falls, her whole life flashes before her eyes. And then there's a twist ending on what happens when the phone hits the ground. But it's funny, and watch it.
So here's the actual thing. So, obviously, I like my phone. I'm a connected person, all that, blah, whatever. But I have a tablet. I have a laptop. The world didn't just come crashing to an end. There was a genuine problem not having it. One, text messages still only go to your phone.
We need to get out of this era.
Yes, we do. And phone calls obviously only go to your phone. I used to use Google Voice, but I stopped because their whole picture messaging.
I still do. I used to too.
I should use. I need to switch back because anyone who's sending me pictures via text message needs to just stop. It's really not the most efficient way to do that. And then the other thing, and this didn't occur to me until most of the way through my time of being smartphone-less, but I use two-factor auth for a lot of stuff, wherever I can.
You just lost your second factor.
Yep. So with Google, there are security passwords, and I have them stored away in a safe place. So I wasn't completely boned. I was a little boned. There are a couple services that I don't know of their workaround. So
you didn't have backup codes for them, and there's So you just have to get your phone back.
Yep. So I don't know what you do in those instances. I guess you're just boned.
Yeah, it seems like eventually What is the answer to that? Where you tie your second factor to something very replaceable?
Well,
I mean, phones are very replaceable, but
yeah, I mean, my thinking is if you two-factor auth should be set up in such a way that you either have the backup codes like Google has,
yeah,
or the company knows enough about you that you could do some kind of really long, convoluted, unpleasant, I swear to God, I'm really this person.
yeah,
Because I know the whole point of two-factor auth is something you know and something you have, but unless they supply...
or something you are.
Yes. Really?
Yeah, that's another option for
Like a
having
fingerprint?
Yeah.
Okay. That I would have just thought of that as something I have. I am my thumbprints.
Well, just the biotech stuff.
Right. Yeah, so there needs to be something besides a smashable glass-covered smartphone.
Yeah.
So thumbprint would work, I guess.
I just look forward to no longer having any long passwords and just having a short thing I can change whenever I want, and then the second factor.
Right. Yeah, well, that's what I think we might have talked about this once, is that thumbprints are good for usernames because you can't change them.
Yeah.
So it's like my thumbprint is me confirming that I am the owner of my thumbprint. But to make it my password is bad because passwords should be changeable.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah. But that was interesting because I was like unhappy that I had to spend the money, obviously. But I was like, I can get by without a cell phone. It'll just be an inconvenience. And then my wife was like, oh, you can use my phone I had to drive somewhere I didn't know how to get to. So she was like, you can just log in on my phone. And I was like, actually, I can't. Well, kind of, but not sort of. It was like a big realization. So fortunately, I didn't have to use any of those services over the weekend that I wasn't already logged into.
You stepped into the dark ages.
It was. But that being said, you should still use two-factor auth. Because the minor inconvenience does not overshadow the months and months and months of peace of mind that I have had before this and I will have going forward. So tell me about...
Good luck, man.
It's the last day. I'm like, I want to take vacation and go home at noon and check the mail, but I can't. I have meetings. So I think... We've talked about Saved You a Click before, but there was some particular shenanigans.
One of the sites we often link to in this podcast, I don't think that's because we have to or anything, but we just kind of end up doing it, is the Verge.
Yeah, they write good stuff.
We send them a lot of traffic from our podcast. And they do write good stuff. They just happen to be really, really wrong recently.
Really wrong.
And we have to call them out. Yeah. So have we talked about Saved You a Click before? Well, anyway, there's a Twitter account called Saved You a Click. And so anytime BuzzFeed or Huffington Post or one of these sites has like, you won't believe what Mark Wahlberg did, he just summarizes it and retweets them without the link. And
as far as I know, this guy does not have a vendetta against BuzzFeed. He has a vendetta against BuzzFeed style headlines.
Yeah.
So he goes after major news outlets just as much as the goofy entertainment outlets.
Yeah, TMZ, the whatever. But yeah, the 7 weird things or what everyone's doing wrong with their toothbrush. And it'll just be like,
Yeah, them.
Well, anyway, he did this to a Verge article, and then the Verge flipped their shit.
Yep.
And decided to write this big-ass editorial on how they think Saved You a Click isn't doing us any favors. And here's the phrase that just totally killed me was they said that Saved You a Click was stealing experiences.
Stealing the experience.
You wouldn't download an experience, but yeah, they're trying. So the article had to do with Sopranos, a show that was done like 7 years ago, and there was some new interview with the creator about whether or not Tony Soprano really died. And spoiler alert, Saved You a Click was like, no.
Yeah. Oh, and for anyone who's unfamiliar, again, it's a 7-year-old show, so get over it. The end of the series, he's in the middle of a sentence. He's screaming at somebody, and it just like, boom, cut to black, credits, series over.
Yeah.
And it's not like I don't think there's like a gun to the side of his head. He's not falling off of a building. There's a lot of ambiguity about what happens. So people were stressing out over this.
Yeah. And the writer of Sopranos was like saying over and over, I'm sick of this question. It's not important. What's important is all these other artistic-y things. But just like he said no, and so Save to Click's like, nope.
Yeah.
And so,
because it's always a one-word answer. Nope. Yep.
But I don't get this uppity, because the problem I have with the Verge's article is they had a clickbait headline. It said, "Does Tony Soprano die at the end of Sopranos?" Instead of interesting new interview with head of Sopranos about the series,
right.
like, can you sell your article on its merits? Because, I mean, I read part of the article. It seems like a really great article. It's 5,000 words.
Yeah.
It's lots of good stuff in there. Why can't you sell it on its merits? Why does it have to be? Well, it's because clickbait works. That's the reason.
And that's the thing is, I feel like the writers, and I mean, I sell articles, but I'm not like a professional writer. That's not my main source of income. But I feel like if you want the perks of a clickbait article, you kind of need to be willing to suffer the, I don't know, like the pejorative
criticism.
Yeah, the criticism that goes with using clickbait articles, or clickbait titles for your articles. They kind of are sort of crappy. Like, it's annoying for one thing, and for another thing, the point of that article was not the answer to that question. It was a long, in-depth interview with the show creator. That was just one tiny part of this otherwise very long, and if you're a fan of the show, probably very interesting article.
Yeah.
So, you article writer, you author are the one who copped out. Don't be pissed because they answered your question.
But I feel like if you're the Verge, even if they do seem to sincerely believe that Saved You a Click was a problem for their artistic work of amazingness, that I just want to tell them, shame on you, you're wrong, but keep it to yourself if you're going to whine about an opt-in Twitter account that people choose to follow that actually probably drives traffic to you.
It definitely does, because this was the amazing side effect that everyone saw coming. Was and this could be a case of like a false flag. Like, they did this big complaint to drive attention because they know that Save You a Click actually drives people to the articles. So
I wish their hissy fit wasn't rewarded.
Right. I mean, I'm presuming a lot, but it feels like someone may have put those pieces together.
Well, they said like a few hours later, their new head editor, Nilay Patel, was like, "Oh yeah, this is our most popular article."
Yeah.
And Saved You a Click complain article is also second best. We're just like, great.
Yeah.
This is the equivalent of on Reddit complaining about downvotes.
Yeah.
Like, stop it.
Well, I think you made the comparison when, the 6th Harry Potter book came out. Someone got a billboard with the big reveal from that book.
Yeah.
Snape kills Dumbledore, and people were like running around and shouting it. Spoilers.
But that's not even the same.
But that's the thing, is Saved You a Click is not...
It wasn't called Harry Potter and the Who the Fuck Killed Dumbledore. You will never believe it.
Right. And also, there's a difference between I, as a consumer, seek out a service that does this for me, and someone like running down the street in front of a bookstore where I'm waiting to buy a book and screaming the ending to the book.
Yeah.
Like, if I follow Saved You a Click, it's because I want my clicks saved. Like, I don't...
That was the other thing that kind of came out on Twitter, was some of the Verge editors were like, it actually takes more clicks to find the original article. I'm like, the point is I don't go to the original article.
Right. And if it's something that tantalizing, or if it's a subject that's that interesting to me, then I go ahead and read it.
I can't imagine, if I'm a Sopranos super fan and I read, oh, he didn't die, I still want to read that article. I want to be like, oh, what happened? Or what? Like, what's going on?
And actually, it didn't occur to me until just now, but this is actually the same kind of argument as the justification for pirating. Now, I'm not trying to excuse pirating, but there is a very powerful moral justification, which is like X-Men Origins Wolverine. It's a really terrible movie. My friend pirated it and I watched it with him. I was not going to pay to see that movie. I wasn't going to. I wasn't going to rent it. I wasn't going to go to the theater. They lost 0 sales by me watching a pirated copy of that movie. So legally, I'm wrong. Like, I watched a stolen copy movie. There's no question. But you cannot make an argument that they lost any money on me because I was never, ever going to give them my money for that movie.
Yeah, that's the distinction I make too, because they always like to publicize, like, we lost billions of dollars. And you're like, no, you didn't. Yeah, people were doing things that are illegal, no question. You didn't lose $1 billion.
Yes. And I have seen pirated movies or used pirated software that did make me go, I'm like, holy crap, I need this thing. Like, these people need to stay in business. Shut up and take my money. So Save You a Click operates on the exact same principle.
And I think that's Adobe's like dominance in creative software has been cemented by pirating. And I think like even though publicly they have to be against pirating and introduce all these horrible things in their installers, but secretly they're like, yeah, every like 15-year-old that just wants to try out photo editing is going to try Photoshop by pirating it. And then when they have an income, they're going to buy Photoshop.
Yes. Well, and they know that Photoshop and InDesign and all that stuff, like no business can operate on pirated software because they'll get audited or something.
Yeah, they'll be screwed.
Yeah, and they'll then all their clients are affected by their shady crap. So if a 15-year-old pirates Photoshop, the lost revenue to them is none because that kid was never going to buy Photoshop.
It's just a future customer you're recruiting.
Right. And then any business would have to actually pay for it. So it's a very weird like clash of the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, because the letter of the law says you can't steal this thing because you're taking money out of their coffers, but the spirit of the law is like, no, stealing this thing actually almost guarantees you putting money into their coffers. Like, it's a really weird. This is one of those things that's like, I'm glad I don't have to make this decision because both ways have a really solid argument. That being said, you whined way too hard about this, The Verge.
Yeah, it's not classy, Verge.
And
get over it.
Yeah, and we'll have a link. We won't save you a click. You can go ahead and read it. We'll have the link in the show notes. And it wouldn't be fair to talk about this without the massive Streisand effect.
Yeah.
Because all of the comments on this article are either, shut up, you guys are whiny, I'm going to go follow Saved You a Click now, or shut up, you guys are whiny, I'm going to go follow Saved You a Click now. Like, no one agreed with them on this.
Yeah, I think they kind of whimpered, or they're not talking about it now.
Yeah. And I found, I mean, I follow a few big name accounts that, you know, are like big authors or whoever for different blogs, and they were like, oh, Verge, no, dude, thank you for turning me on to this Twitter account. And then I was surprised by the number of people I know who are tech, you know, people in the tech industry who were like, hey, thanks for complaining about this, Verge. I always thought I was pretty connected, but I didn't know about this, so big thumbs up.
That's the internet spitefulness, dude. Just like trying to
it really is
twist the knife. Like, oh, thanks, I didn't even know about this thing you are saying you hate.
Yeah, but I mean, it's total Streisand effect. Like, all of these people had no idea.
Well, I love that Saved You a Click summarized the Verge whiny article, and it just said, they're mad at me.
Yep. Wait, not that long ago, because it is a guy, isn't it, that does Save You a Click?
Yeah, it's just some dude.
Yeah. Not that long ago, he actually tweeted something like, do you guys want me to stop? Like, not in response to anyone, it was related to something, but not in response to an article. He just said to his followers, like, do you want me to stop? And just like hundreds of responses, like, no, please keep doing what you're doing. No, you're awesome. We love you. No, don't stop. It's just like, all right, so if I'm a bad person, we're all bad people together.
This next one's gonna hurt.
It is.
There's a new sitcom
you didn't
about.
Watch it, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay.
So, in case you're unaware, dear listener, there's a sitcom about young people. Whoa. Young people. And the only significant factor about them is that they decided not to use smartphones in their life.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's it. You're looking for something else.
Yeah.
And you know someone who actually watched this.
I do.
So what's the report from the field?
So my wife decided she's actually very generous when it comes to pilots. So she will sit down and watch a pilot just as give it a chance. Like she's fair.
Most shows are not their greatest at their first episode.
Right. So she's like an equal opportunity pilot watcher. And there are a few actors and actresses in this that she's a big fan of. So she was like, okay, this seems terrible, but I will give it a shot. And she said it was completely terrible. Now, one thing, so I actually brought up the Wikipedia article here because I was curious about a few of the actors' names. It's John Cho. I'm never going to be able to commit that to memory.
John Cho.
It's the guy from Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle and the Star Trek reboot.
Isn't he in like Selfie or one of these other sitcoms too?
This.
Oh.
This is Selfie.
Oh, okay.
Yes, this terrible show is called Selfie.
Okay, the show I was talking about is called All Together Now.
Oh, dear God. There's multiple terrible shows like this?
Yes.
Oh, dear God.
So.
This is even worse.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Okay, so the terrible show I'm talking about is Selfie. I was confused because how many terrible shows like this could there be? I wondered.
So we'll have to find out how bad.
Yeah.
In what way.
Yeah, that'll be next week. But
yeah, Selfie looked awful from the start.
Okay, so Selfie is awful. And here's the thing I think is particularly amazing. So Susan's telling me about how terrible the show is and how like hackneyed the premise is. And she just shrugged and she was like, it's My Fair Lady. It's a modern My Fair Lady. There's nothing original about this show. And now right here on the Wikipedia article, it says genre, sitcom, created by Emily Kapnick, whatever, based on My Fair Lady.
Yeah.
Like it's right. So it's not even.
I just say like there's a way to take an old story and modernize it and make it awesome. And then there's, let's make it modern.
Yeah. Yeah. I think let's take Shakespeare or let's take, classic literature from the 18 and early 1900s and modernize it.
Lion King, Hamlet.
Yeah. That can't be your starting premise. Taking something old and adding in computers can't be your starting premise.
Yeah.
Right? Because you know what that is. That's the gritty reboot. It's like, let's take this children's thing and make it gritty. And it's like, no, that can't be your starting
Mario doesn't
premise.
need to have sex and like shoot people in the head.
He does not. Like, you need more than that. And it's a bummer because there's probably a spark of opportunity here, which is never, ever going to catch fire. It's just not.
Halt and catch fire.
It is not going to halt and catch fire, which I've heard is actually pretty good.
I've watched the first episode. It was intriguing. It's fun. That's a show that, listener, you should go check out if you have access. Is it on AMC? I think it's AMC.
Let's see.
Walking Dead Network.
Halt, catch fire. Oh, then, yeah, that's AMC.
The at least for nerds like me, it's just fun to see how they worked really hard on creating the feel of 80s personal computing in that whole IBM era.
Right.
And it's just fun.
I'd heard that
also Lee Pace.
At some point someone dissected whether or not the font, like the blinking terminal font on the screen, was the correct one, and it is. And it's like it's a screen in the background on a monitor they don't walk up to, I guess. So it's like a completely trivial detail.
Yeah,
they were like,
they worked
no,
their
it has to be
asses off.
right. It has to be right.
And obviously they're at a fictional like computer company, and so they invent some things, but like everything possible is like so 80s.
Such 80s.
Such 80s. Very old.
I'll have to wait till this hits Netflix. Hurry up.
Hurry up.
But yeah, so Selfie, I'm flabbergasted right now that there was some other terrible smartphone-based show that I did not know about.
So I didn't remember that was an element of Selfie, that she's like obsessed with herself and horrible, and then
she's a social media maven. Yep. And I don't know if that's the term they use in the show, but that was what came to me when this was being described. But she's like obsessed.
I just selfied a little bit in my mouth.
Do you know the plot of My Fair Lady?
Yeah, roughly.
Yeah, so I mean, she's like obsessed with image and culture and all that, and then she decides she needs to modernize herself, and she goes to the guy, I think that's John Cho's character, and she's like, "Turns out I'm a shallow bitch. Can you help me?" And he's like, "No." And then for some reason later, he's like, "I changed my mind."
That sounds like a lot of money.
Yeah, and then that's the premise of My Fair Lady. Is like, you're a shallow person. I'm gonna make you into a better person. And
we can drag this on forever.
Yeah. And I mean, we'll be able to do this again in 50 years when we have some other kind of technology that everyone thinks makes you shallow.
Like, yeah, I think that's the most irritating part of it, that it's blaming the symptom and not the cause, which is being a shallow bitch.
Right. Well, I mean, that's why it's so trivial to modernize, because the core material is timeless. There's a reason My Fair Lady is considered like a classic, because even though she's all about high society dinners and all kinds of like time period relevant stuff, that's not really what it's about. You can just substitute in high society dinners for being on Twitter nonstop.
So that also sounds more like a British story of class warfare.
A little bit.
Than like... Yeah, American struggles have typically been different.
I mean, yes, but we do
more
have
race.
A little bit more. And Karen Gillan is very much Scottish, and she apparently speaks with an American accent, which to me makes at least a few minutes of the pilot worth watching.
Just watch her struggle to hide it.
I'm sure she does an admirable job, but the thing is, I know her only from Doctor Who, where she makes no effort to hide her accent. Her being Scottish is a huge part of her character.
Reverse Kevin Costner Robin Hood.
Yeah, exactly. That's something they need a 2000 level film course.
We were talking about the other day.
Reverse Kevin Costner.
I don't know if you were in that conversation where there was an actual dialect coach on the set of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves.
I was not part of this.
Okay. What did that person do? Nothing, apparently. Or Kevin Costner is just like, nope.
Well, maybe he's big enough that they were like, oh, hey, maybe you could try a little harder.
How's this, Maid Marian?
Ugh, yikes.
It's funny because I don't mind that movie, but he made zero effort.
Well, some characters don't, or some actors, I should say, like Sean Connery in Hunt for Red October. Like, it's an awfully Scottish accent you have, Russian terrorists. And I mean, it's not like he's doing a bad Russian accent. He just Sean Connery's it. He goes full Sean Connery, which I think
submarine.
So that movie does one of the most interesting, yes, they're speaking Russian visual cues. So in the beginning, two people are talking and they're speaking Russian, and the camera does this like uncomfortably tight close up on their mouth. I mean, like where their mouth fills the entire screen. And then it pans away, and on the pan away, they're no longer speaking Russian, they're speaking English. So from that point on, it's like, does anyone's accent really matter? Because they're supposed to be speaking Russian. Yeah. It's not English with terrible Russian accents. They're just speaking Russian.
I do have to say, as far as Jack Ryan character movies go, isn't Jack Ryan Hunt for Red October?
I have no idea.
Okay, before Patriot Games and before... I'm pretty sure it's a Jack Ryan story. It's Clancy. The new one with Captain Kirk from the rebooted Star Trek as Jack Ryan. I can't remember the actor's name.
They're redoing Hunt for Red October?
No, but it was a new Jack Ryan movie. It already came out earlier this year. Kenneth Branagh plays the Russian terrorist, and he does try, and it's bad.
Oh, yikes.
I would have rather Sean Connery did.
I think that's actually because it's like a suspension of disbelief kind of thing. It's like he's not speaking English with a Scottish accent.
Maybe he's just a weird Russian.
Yeah, maybe he has a Scottish-Russian accent. Yikes! But you're right. I just Scrushin. It is Jack Ryan.
Rodish.
So it's a Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan, Sean Connery.
Well, this new one, directed by Kenneth Branagh, was the first one that wasn't based on an actual Clancy story because Clancy died a few years ago.
Or they just go and
so they rebooted it, and it's one of it's everything. It's selfie, but for Jack Ryan.
Great,
Jack Ryan selfie.
I don't. This kind of thing. I may have mentioned this before, but I think it's such an interesting factoid. I just love to pull it out whenever I can. I understand coming up with original ideas that are also good ideas because that Venn diagram needs to have a lot of overlap to be successful. Like, that's hard. That's really super hard. So what a lot of people do in television and movies particular is they take other original content, usually books, and then they slap familiar branding on it, and then they sell it. And that's what happened with, I think, the second Die Hard. Which is why it's not like any of the other Die Hards, because it's not Die Hard. It's a cop story that someone wrote that they just took and they were like, this is a decent story, and they just slapped a Die Hard icing.
That's what Nintendo does. Here's a new game idea, Mario.
Yeah. I mean, Super Mario Galaxy is like the previous Mario games in none ways. Like, you could have just made any little adorable solid color character run around like that, and it would have been exactly as fun, but it wouldn't have had the brand recognition.
Yeah.
And that's important. I get that. But then on the flip side, we get Selfie and whatever remake you're talking about.
So what are reboots that we would consider great? Think of any? There are some.
There are some. It's hard because the terrible ones are the ones that stand out.
Yeah. I mean, I guess when it comes down to it, it's easier to think of it for things like Sherlock, where it's like, it's not really like you rebooted with the one Sherlock. It's like, oh, in the past 100 years of cinema, there have been countless Sherlocks, and here's a good one.
That's a, like, reinterpretation.
Yeah.
Because that's actually...
And actually, I enjoy the Guy Ritchie movie Sherlocks with Robert Downey Jr., even though they're different.
I would say the modern Sherlock television show is a good example of Sherlock, but with technology. Because the core premise there isn't...
It wasn't like Sherlock with Hackerz.
Exactly.
With a Z.
The core premise there is... Oh, God. Is how would Sherlock the detective function differently in an age of constant communication technology, DNA technology, crimes that involve the perpetrator using technology, locks that are technology.
The first use that I'm aware of the on-screen text messaging style that I think works really well, instead of showing us a shot of a phone every other second.
Ugh. Yeah, especially because, Kevin Spacey killing.
House of Cards?
Yeah, House of Cards.
Killing
it. Totally killing it.
Yeah.
But so in House of Cards, they also use the on-screen text thing. And House of Cards and Sherlock are both really good about believable facial expressions.
Yeah.
Where it's not every laugh isn't because no one laughs like that, right? So they're little smirks, little twinkles in the eye, that kind of thing. So when you do the on-screen text message, it lets you read the text but also see their face.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the more
And they don't
important.
have to read it to themselves like a crazy person or anything like that.
Oh, I see I got a text message from John. See you in 10.
I hate that in movies where it's so clear they're trying to cement something in the audience's mind. So they show something blinking and then the character's reading it to themselves and then follows it up with that means this, and you're just oh, so you're just going out of your way to spell this out.
Yeah. And I don't have the movie kind of background like you do, but I find the more I'm learning about the art of filmmaking, the harder it's making it to enjoy certain things because things stand out to me now that before were just a minor annoyance, a buzzing that I didn't know where it was coming from. But now I know it's that speaker. That one's buzzing. Can we freaking fix this, please?
Well, it is kind of a movie writer rule. If you want the audience to remember something, you basically have to show it to them 3 times.
Sure.
But there's still ways to do it where it's not just hey, this, look at this. Well, we're doing this now.
Where it's come up for me a lot is with the audience foil, the character that people explain things to because you're an idiot.
Yeah, they represent you.
Yes, and it's like that.
So it's like someone says something that makes sense if you're smart and not an idiot, and then the other character goes, "What the hell does that mean?"
Yeah.
It means some really simplistic, actually kind of wrong answer.
Yes, and that can be handled well, like the audience foil, but it can also, you can screw that up really super easy. And it happens with anything like scientific or technological all the time, where person A does something techie, and then person B is like, "What are you doing? You Hackerz and what's that?" And then they give them this like terrible explanation. It's
me,
like, it would have been better to just not know. Magic. It was magic.
It's used in procedural crime shows all the time because there's always some sidekick characters that are running errands all the time, and they just show up when they need to move to a new location. And so I'm thinking of Castle. There's the two like side detectives besides Nathan Fillion and what's her face.
I'm aware of this show.
Yeah. Well, they're always around, and they're comic relief, but then they're also, "Oh, we got those test results back. What happened? Blah, blah, blah happened. You need to go check this." Now they can go to that situation.
Right. Yeah,
and
so they are the press A to continue the story.
Yeah, it's so transparently, you are just a functional piece to move the character to the new location. You don't get to be a character.
Yeah.
No one gets to care about you. You're just there.
And I'll say, so I get to mention Doctor Who twice. That's cool. So Doctor Who actually does this really well because they're aware of how annoying it is, so they do it poorly on purpose. So it's not, I mean, because it's sci-fi. Like, there is nothing to explain. It's all made up. So there'll be times where he'll do something, the Doctor will do something, or something will happen, and then his companion, who is obviously the audience, like the companion will ask a question and then he'll give an explanation that's like really confusing. And then he'll stop and be like, "Okay, well, it's not really like that at all, but you wouldn't understand." And it's like, he's basically just saying to the audience, like, just
shut up.
Just get over it. Like,
so that's what I appreciated. Did you ever see Looper?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yeah, when Bruce Willis is like, "Shut up, we are not drawing diagrams, we're not doing the time travel movie thing. Shut up, accept it, I'm you from the future."
And it's delivered in a way that I think only certain kinds of actors could deliver because, so what's his name? Young Bruce Willis is asking.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Yeah, thank you. He's asking, old Bruce Willis, him from the future, all these like, "Well, what if I do this? What if that happens? What about this? Isn't it weird that we're talking now?" And he just goes, "I didn't come here to talk about time travel." And then it's never mentioned again. Like one sentence with an angry, furrowed Bruce Willis.
It's just
brow,
like, we get it, snarky teenager that just figured out that time travel movies are paradoxes.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Yeah, it's just, I love it because that's exactly what I was saying before. Like the premise of that movie is not time travel. There's a story about him and like doing the right thing and the moral choices we make. And time travel has nothing to do with any of that. Nothing to do with any of it.
It's just a mechanic used to make it interesting.
Yeah. No, there's this movie I know I've mentioned before, but it's so funny how brazen they are about it. There's a terrible movie called like Out of Time with Justin Timberlake.
Oh, dear Lord.
No, before anything happens, the very first line in the movie is a narration line. You haven't seen anything. It's a black screen. And the first spoken words are, "No one remembers how things ended up this way." I'm like, this movie is now forgiven for all of the transgressions it's about to make.
Yeah, movies allowed to set the frame of reference, and as long as it's consistent inside that, I can live with it.
Yes.
I can live with absurd premises. That's fine. Just don't violate your own rules you set up.
And there are other terrible things about that movie, but the premise is never violated from that point. Like, if you accept that starting point, they never violate the premise from that time on.
Yeah.
And
that's the deal you make with movies. I think it's only a fair watching of a movie to give it that, like, you give it that chance to say, "Here's what I'm doing. Okay, follow me."
Yes. Well, this is exactly why I hated the new Star Trek movies so much. I hate them so much because it's a sci-fi fantasy romp where they can do whatever the hell they want. But then once you set rules, you have to stick to them. This is why I hated the Star Wars prequels so much. Like, it's your universe. Set whatever rules you want and then stick to them. Or if you have to break them through
Make
your
a new
lazy,
universe.
crappy writing, at least give me a good reason, like a really satisfying reason. I read a book recently called Creativity Inc., which is all about like the founding of Pixar and then their like career up into it's a 2014 book, so it comes up to very recently. And at one point, he actually says it's not John Lasseter, it's Ed Hull, the other founder, not Steve Jobs, not John Lasseter, Ed Catmull. Thank you. But he actually says at one point in the book, like, some of our movies have like inconsistencies, like legitimate screw ups, but no one cares because the movies are so good. And the one that always stood out to me as a great example of that is in Up. If you haven't seen Up, go see Up. But it's really
Pause
good.
right now.
Seriously, it's so good. But the main character is a little old man who is inspired by this adventurer from when he was a very small boy, like an 8-year-old. Well, at the end of the movie, or during the whole movie, he's like in his 70s or 80s. So this person who was already an established adult would be like 140. And they actually said they had a whole story about how that character lived to be so old. And then they were like, nobody's going to care. No one will care that he's impossibly old. So let's just not mention it. And it was probably the third or fourth time I saw that movie before I was like, wait, isn't he like 200? How is he that old? But it's because you just don't care. Like, it doesn't matter that he's that old.
Yeah.
So, and the writers were very aware. They were like, eh.
I mean, an easier way to put it is like when you watch Finding Nemo and the fish are talking.
Sure.
Who cares?
Yeah, nobody cares. It's like,
set up this is the world. Fish talk.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go. And they even make a point to say that they can talk but not read. Like, it's a big deal that Dory can read English.
Yeah.
So that even helps create a bigger disconnect because it's like, oh, they're not literally speaking English.
Yeah.
It's just fish can communicate.
And then maybe this is a little bit of a straw man because I don't think I've met someone that's upset that the fish talk in Finding Nemo, but that is sort of what kind of dim sense of realism, like insistence on realism,
right?
Would someone want to shackle art with? Like, it just seems like you're dumb.
Well, this is why,
there's realistic movies that are wonderful and it's awesome to see.
Sure,
that's one frame to paint on.
This is why that show ADHD on Fox, they have the scientifically accurate whatever.
Yeah,
this is why I just can't find those bits that funny. Like, they're funny in really small doses.
Like, yeah, I know Ninja Turtles isn't realistic. Thanks for the pep talk.
Yes. Yeah, okay, ducks are terrible, so DuckTales would be really terrible. All right. And especially because a lot of them are just like, animals are weird. And it's like, that joke only goes so far. It's like, yes, animals are not human. Okay.
Thunder, 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 thunder scares cats.
Right, so that's that whole joke. Like,
That's
you don't need 90 seconds of cats.
The name
are
of this
from
is anti what cats are.
Yes. So that's I don't know. I'm not like a film critic. I'm not a super creative person, but I feel like trying to cram realism and 100% consistency.
That's just
into
one
things,
brush that someone can strive for.
It's boring. Like, if I wanted to just watch someone sit in an office, I would just walk through a place of work.
So what comes to mind to me is a movie I love is 2001.
Yes.
But there's like 45 minutes of realistic modern space station that I totally understand why a lot of people would just fall asleep.
Yep.
And I mean, I find plenty to appreciate about it, but I cannot blame them one bit.
Yeah.
For falling asleep. You know, in between cool monkey intro, they're not monkeys, are they?
They're apes, I guess.
Apes. And awesome howl segment that everyone thinks about.
Right.
Which is actually like less than half the movie.
Oh, yeah, it's a small piece. but it's just the most impactful.
Because there's huge space station section. They go to the moon and find that monolith or whatever. And
how do you feel about the 5 or 10 minutes of the guy jogging?
Just look at our cool camera tricks.
Isn't that actually a rotating set? Yeah. Which seems like the only way to do that right and really technically difficult.
So the more modern famous scene of rotating sets is Inception, when they're in the hallway running around the different walls.
Yes.
And that was seriously impressive. Anyway.
Yeah. And the thing is, when I found out how they did that, it didn't take anything away from the scene. It made me go, I want to do that. Is there like a theme park where I can go and do that?
And you'll have the camera move with the room so it looks like I'm running all over the different walls.
Exactly. That would be an excellent use of hyperlapse. Just some crazy room spinning, and you have to put yakety sax over it.
And you just get to run in a circle around it like Sonic.
Yeah. Oh, that would be fun. See, I'm coming up with I don't know where I'm going to get the money for this theme park, but I want to build this theme park. So you have in here I think this is a saved you a click style rundown note. Nintendo to refocus on hardcore gamers. Actually, it should be, is Nintendo going to refocus on hardcore gamers? Yes. But so I think out of the two of us, you're the bigger Nintendo fan. You stuck with them longer than me is probably the right way to put it. But so what did they do to confirm that they're reasserting the base?
This headline, this clickbait headline was sourced from a Miyamoto interview with Edge magazine. And he was saying that his team, so it's sort of like, is Miyamoto all of Nintendo? No, but here's what his team.
Some people, I would have said yes. I think a lot of people would say
most
yes.
important thing, but no, there's other directors that have done great things. The Smash Brothers guy is not Miyamoto.
Yeah, but he drew entirely from Miyamoto's
his characters, but he didn't create the game.
That's true.
So Miyamoto said his team doesn't want to focus on making content for people who, quote, passively enjoy games. So this is a change from Nintendo's Wii strategy.
Yes.
Which was
it's the exact opposite.
Which was, holy shit, there's a whole bunch of people that aren't core gamers that we should sell to. And it worked amazingly well for Wii Bowling and 0 other games.
Yep.
But so here's some quotes.
Wii Bowling.
So what Miyamoto means by a passive gamer, these are the sort of people who, for example, might want to watch a movie. They might want to go to Disneyland. Their attitude is, okay, I'm the customer. You're supposed to entertain me. It's kind of a passive attitude, and to me, it's kind of a pathetic thing. They do not know how interesting it is if you move one step further and try to challenge yourself with more advanced games. So basically, I want to target people that want to step and meet me in the middle for a game experience.
Right.
And not people that are waiting in the doctor's office and are just like, drag colors back and forth.
So I knew mobile gaming would come up at some point.
Yeah.
And when I saw this article, I saw it on Reddit, and the comments on Reddit, if you get good at skimming, can be a super useful place to go. It's not like YouTube comments, which are just always a mountain of garbage. There is no gold in them hills. It is just a
except
hill
the one
of
I
crap.
called out the other day.
Yeah. Okay. So
the exception that proves the rule.
With the guy, I don't know, woman, person, children, could have been a dog.
Children.
What this person said on Reddit, it could have been like 2 children like stacked wearing an overcoat so they look like an adult. But what this person said was the difference between a hardcore gamer and a casual gamer is not the kind of game, it's the way they approach gaming. And that I kind of had like epiphany moment, because I realized playing like Assassin's Creed or Grand Theft Auto or Madden or something like that doesn't make you a hardcore Call of Duty pro gamer or whatever. Like that doesn't make you a hardcore gamer, because you can still play those things like once a month for an hour while not really paying attention. Or you can play Candy Crush with like a fierce intensity, or like play Tetris like at a competition level where you're like fighting for money by how well you play. So there's a little bit like some games are casual games, period. Like Solitaire, I don't think you can really make Solitaire an intense experience. Maybe you could if you had like fire, but I think it is more about the way you approach gaming. And I like that Nintendo is saying, we want to make games that there's like a reason to approach them and try and get something out of them because there's something there to get out. Like, I love Wii Bowling for like an hour, but then you've really kind of seen it all.
At Christmas when the family's around.
Yeah. And then you're sort of done. You've hit the bottom of the well.
And Miyamoto isn't actually down on mobile gaming. He's actually thankful that smartphones are kind of taking that over and making normal people aware of gaming, or aware that the things they do are gaming. And
the
even
gateway drug.
People who don't self-identify as gamers actually play a shit ton of games,
Yes,
and for some reason think they're not gamers.
Yeah, I'm glad we're seeing the end of the pejorative gamer. Like, oh, he's a gamer. Oh, she games. Oh, they're weird. It's like, that's going away.
So here's another quote. He says, "Fortunately, because of the spread of smart devices, people take games for granted now. It's a good thing for us because we do not have to worry about making games something that are relevant to general people's daily lives."
I think that's really the money quote, because that's saying like, yeah, the Wii was awesome. We got your grandfather and grandmother playing Wii Bowling, but now we want to make games that are more interesting and deeper. And thank God, because I love Mario, but it's like they can't ride just that train forever. And what they did with the most recent Zelda game, Link Between Worlds, was like that was a game. Like there was stuff to do. There was a world to explore.
It wasn't just constantly like catering to the total passive idiot.
Yeah, man, it was so good. Like I loved it so much. So that's a particular genre of game, but like Super Mario Galaxy, I think the first one was like really had kind of like a world and you were doing stuff like in it, sort of like Mario 64, whereas Super Mario Galaxy 2 just went back to the grid thing. Like you literally follow a linear
I actually
course.
like that.
Really?
Because Super Mario Galaxy was I don't like Mario Hub Worlds. I don't like it when I have to run around and find the right person to talk to get to the next set of challenges. And Mario Galaxy 2 was just like, here's just a shit ton of good levels. Play them.
So, okay. So I will agree with you if the hub world is annoying, it's bad. I just don't want an annoying hub world.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking of like the original Infamous.
I mean, it's not Sonic Adventure bad, but
is anything.
I think that might be the worst hub world in a otherwise decent game ever made.
Yeah, you might be right. But like the original Infamous, like you had to go around, like the entire world was basically a hub world.
Yeah.
And then you had to go like talk to a person. But if you weren't in a quest, you were in the hub. Like nothing was happening until you initiated a quest. Then the world kind of started its machinations again. So I guess with Mario, it's a little bit harder because you always have to either leave the level select screen or the hub world to go to the level.
Yeah.
You know?
I just found there's too many conversations and too many, here's 50 stars being shot out of you and to fill this bucket to open the next thing. I'm just like, just get on with it.
Yeah, maybe I've got some nostalgia goggles going on.
Well,
So-
I feel like if you replayed it, you'd be like, oh my God, I don't care. Give me a level.
So could you do a truly open world Mario, like we're way over there, or like
just the levels ready
lava
to go?
levels? Yeah, you're just in it all the time.
I bet if they just had some clever background loading, they could make that happen.
I don't mean technologically, but I mean would it shatter the universe? Because think about how like you have underwater levels and then you have like lava levels and you have like space levels. Like would it be weird to have him physically travel from destination to destination?
If they made it worthwhile, I guess it could be like Wind Waker,
Oh, with your crazy boat time.
which they fixed in the Wii U version because you have a double speed sail now.
There it
just
is.
Gets you. And apparently, you have to wait till they remake Zelda games now.
Yeah, I'm okay with that because then they come out and they're way better and they're $20
You're like, oh, that
less.
thing we thought was really cool was actually really annoying. We just smoothed it over.
Yeah. No, I'm all about iterating. That's fine. No shame. You don't have to set your game in stone forever. Well, actually, that's a good
Miyamoto quote. That a rushed game is bad forever, but a late game is only bad for. Or I don't know. I just ruined it.
I get what you're getting at. I don't know the specific quote.
I will find it.
So while you're looking for that,
A delayed game is eventually good, but a bad game is bad forever.
What did you Google to get that so quick?
A late game, Miyamoto.
Man, Google's amazing.
Late isn't even in the quote.
Yeah.
Figured it out.
But that's how good it is. So, I think we should mention one last game that you actually just brought to my awareness last night. So, Final Fantasy type, is it O or 0?
I don't know. It was a Vita game in Japan.
So this never came to America, and I haven't played the Japanese version. But as soon as I read about this remake, this Polygon article you shared with me, I was like, hey, this actually sounds like a Final Fantasy game. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Because the more recent Final Fantasy games, like the 13 trilogy, they didn't feel like Final Fantasy games. And I know my take on what that means is colored by the fact that I actually grew up in the 90s playing the old cartridge games and then eventually the disc ones. But like, it's not that it's a futuristic setting, because like 7 and 8 were futuristic settings. And it's not that it's like basically a giant hallway you walk down, because 10 was kind of a giant hallway that you walk down. But it like they just didn't feel like Final Fantasy games. First off, they didn't feel like games.
Yeah.
It felt like long, complicated movies where you had to keep pressing a button on the remote for the movie to keep playing. But this
Netflix saying, "Are you still alive?"
Yeah, except every 5 minutes during the episode you're watching. Yeah. Hey, did you die during your marathon of Futurama? If so, don't press any buttons. But yeah, it's this game, like, first off, it has some Japanese tropes that are difficult for Americans to ingest sometimes, but are kind of core to Final Fantasy. Like, the main group of protagonists are students. And that's sort of like, that's core to a lot of anime and video games out of Japan. And I don't know what that trope is from.
It might also just be like they figure their audience is teenagers who are students in school. So there's just inherently things they'll relate to.
It could be as simple as that. But I like that there's an emphasis on like the collective. Like, it's a group of interesting people, not an interesting person surrounded by boring people. Because I mean, that's Final Fantasy 13. You had
a totally boring person surrounded by interesting people.
All right, well, so their execution was terrible, but their goal was to have, like, it's all about lightning, right? And then there's all these other people who are like just in her life. Yeah, no, it's terrible. It was awful. Like, I still haven't finished 13-2, and I don't even know.
I didn't even finish the first 13.
Oh, I did finich the first one.
The first 13. That's something we have to say.
That's a sentence that had to be spoken. But yeah, I have like no driving interest to finish that story because I don't care about the world or any of the characters. Whereas this other game, I barely know anything about it, but because I know the intentions that are going into its design, I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. I also like again, we just had a rant about how realism is and everything, but it can be awesome when it fits, that they wanted to try less. They wanted to connect the player to battle more directly, and so they're playing with more. I don't know. This phrase sounds strange. Realistic magic, but it's like if you get burned by fire,
realistic effects.
Yeah,
like the ramifications of magic.
So your stuff gets burned. How to get burned?
7 ways to get burned by magic and what to do about it.
So yeah,
but I think that's so. There's a. You've never played D&D, right?
No.
Okay, so the core rules of D&D are every RPG you've ever played, basically. So there's one particular thing about all video gaming that only like serious gritty games ever take into account, which is when you get hurt, it doesn't really impact your performance. Like when Mario has like 5 slices of pie life, he jumps just as high as he does when he has 1 slice of pie life, right? But in like some gritty dark games, like as you get hurt, you like slow down and like you can't carry as much stuff. And
Bushido blade, like you can't use your right arm anymore.
Exactly. That was like an early game that really took that kind of to extremes. And it was awesome. Like it made for a very interesting fighting game. Well, they don't do that a lot in gaming because it's hard. Like, it means if you're it's a negative feedback
Even
loop.
in car games, they hardly destroy the cars.
Oh, yeah. But it creates this situation where, like, oh, you made a mistake, you're now more likely to make another mistake. Oh, you made another mistake, now you're way more likely to make another mistake. So it's like, it does make it a little less fun and just way harder. But I think you can kind of take that idea with, like, something like magic and say, like, oh, you got hit with, like, ice magic. Well, now, like, your weapon is more likely to break. You have others, so it's okay if one of your weapons breaks. But since the metal's been frozen, like, it's more likely to shatter or something. Or
just that your stuff wears down.
Right.
I mean, the Bethesda games have done that sort of, like, as you use stuff, you have to repair it. And it really doesn't. It's like everything's in abundance, so you're never struggling to repair things. You're like, oh, I only have 17 pistols with which to repair the one I'm using.
But you don't have unlimited, like, was it the Fat Man? The little nuke launcher?
Oh, yeah.
So, like, some things, like some of the really powerful things, they're not just lying everywhere. Like, you can't just repair your power armor endlessly.
But then your second playthrough, you just turn on God mode and have infinite Fat Mans.
Because it's super fun. But I mean, that kind of, like, your actions have ramifications because it just makes the world feel more, not realistic, but, like, more real in the sense that, like, the things I'm doing matters and the things other people do, like even NPCs and stuff matter. They affect me.
Yeah.
So I'm not looking for realism in the, like, 9-to-5 job kind of way.
Shenmue.
Yeah, not that. God, never that. I didn't have, it was a Saturn game. I never played the original one, and then I think they re-released it later. But Dreamcast. But the way people talk about it so positively.
I don't get it.
And it makes it sound like the worst game
Shenmue
ever.
is terrible. I eagerly bought it and actually enthusiastically went through the whole game, and I can say it's not a good game. It does not hold up. It's terrible.
It's got to just be nostalgia goggles.
The control scheme is convoluted. The story is not. I mean, I guess the best thing about it is the story is okay. It's, like, interesting.
But it sounds like it should have just been a movie.
I mean, it's a revenge movie. He killed your dad and you're hunting him down.
Spoilers.
Like, plenty of motivation. That's the first scene in the movie is your dad getting killed. But then you're like, oh, sweet. So this, like, drug lord, crime boss killed my dad. I'm just, like, a teenager that knows some kung fu. I'm going to go fucking kill him.
Yeah. But
and
first
then it's
I have
like,
to get a job in a
no,
warehouse.
I'm going to go talk to every house in the neighborhood if they saw a black car driving the other day. Ugh. And then once I find out the black car is related to this dojo, I'm going to ask everyone where the dojo is. And then I can't get into the dojo. It's just like, none of this is fun. None of this is fun.
So I'm super glad I missed Shenmue. Shenmue, the game.
When you did get to fight, it was basically Virtua Fighter, and it was fun. But
so just play Virtua Fighter.
2% of the game was Virtua Fighter.
So just play Virtua Fighter and call it a day. So Mike,
and then talk to some old ladies about where things are.
So where can people find the show notes for this episode?
You can find them at flippingtablespodcast.com/030. This is our 30th week of podcasting.
Oh, God. Never gonna go away, but it's okay. And where can people find you on the internet?
Just find me at pseudomichael.com.
There you go.
And that's it. Deal with it.
Mic drop. Boom. People can find me at Lyons in Beta on Twitter, lyonsinbeta.com, or plus David Lyons on the Google's pluses.
And if you haven't already, you should follow flipping_tables on Twitter, or
I think it's plus flipping tables on Google Plus.
Flipping Tables Podcast, I think.
I don't know. Just Google.
Find us.
Google Flipping Tables. Yep. And it's on flippingtables.com.
Podcast.com.
Jesus. This is why we need a social media maven, a guru, if you will, to sort all this crap out, because I just can't keep it straight.
Yeah.
There's too much internets in my brain.
All right. Thanks for listening.
Have a
Later.
good week.